Okay, so where did I leave off? Okay, I was talking about Abdullah the Butcher. Okay, so like I was saying, Abdullah the Butcher was one of the guys that really revolutionized hardcore wrestling. I don't think I've ever seen any Abdullah the Butcher match that didn't have blood in it. So, you know, that guy there was probably, if not the most intimidating wrestler back in that era, probably one of the most intimidating wrestlers in that era. Because, I mean, if you see a guy walking down a dark alley dressed like he's from the Sudan in Africa with some camel toe boots on, three scars above his head, and doesn't say anything, you better run. Because even though he probably can't run, he's going to eventually get you if you don't run. So, yeah. But anyway, moving on. Let's talk about the Road Warriors. The LOD. Ooh, what a rush. Man, I used to love that. Man, Road Warriors, if they're not the best tag team ever in professional wrestling of all time, then I say they're one of the best. Because I mean, you do have a lot of great tag teams out there, in wrestling's past that you could kind of put on the pedestal as being the greatest ever. But definitely the Road Warriors were, one of the first tag teams to really set the trend for tag team wrestling. Especially back in the late '80s, going into the early '90s. You know, um, I was a huge Road Warriors fan. I mean, from when they were in WWF back then to WCW to when they came back to the WWE. You know, I mean, they were just awesome, man. They had the face paint and the spikes, and they would just come out and just beat up people. You know, and they were a dominant tag team on top of that. And the one amazing thing that really stood out to me about the Road Warriors is their agility. You've got Animal, who looks like a dang on bodybuilder, like doing a standing drop kick without even like gasping for air. Now, mind you, Animal now, this guy has to be like 300 and something pounds, but a solid muscular 300 pounds. Like doing flying clotheslines and standing drop kicks and all these top rope moves and stuff. You don't see too many muscular big men with that type of agility. You know, and they were very powerful guys too, man. Like they just pick people up and just heave them in the air like they were sacks of potatoes or something. I know that's an old cliche, but they were really that strong. And Hawk was the same way. I mean, they basically ran roughshod everywhere that they went, whether it be going back to the days of NWA to WCW to WWE. They dominated in every federation that they went to. And that's what was so cool about them, because you really didn't have a lot of dominant tag teams back then. And the few that you had, it was probably maybe, one or two, but the Road Warriors, they were just the, they were the team back then, and of course they held almost every tag team title known to man. I can't recall one tag team title that they didn't hold, you know, and yeah, they were just great, man. They were awesome. I mean, there's really no other words to say, man. I mean, they were just an awesome tag team, and I think they really, if you want to know my honest opinion, I think they really also started up, the the face paint and the mohawk and all this other stuff. I think they started out with the how can I put it, the animation of tag teams in the wrestling business. You know, because if it wasn't for the Legion of Doom, you would never have any teams like Demolition or uh, what's another tag team that wore face paint? The Powers of Pain. Um, what was another tag team that wore uh, face paint? I can't. It wasn't too many of them, but you know, basically the Road Warriors started that. You know, the whole face paint thing. You know, like seriously. I mean, and even like you know with Sting and the Ultimate Warrior, you know, I mean, if it wasn't for the Road Warriors, Sting and the Ultimate Warrior probably would never have thought of that idea. You know, because I mean that was just unheard of back then. You know, wearing face paint and having you know these hardcore looking hairdos and stuff. You know, the Road Warriors. You know, they laid the foundation for that type of stuff. You know, and that's just one of the many reasons why they're going into the Hall of Fame. Not only because they were an awesome tag team and not because they were multi-time tag team champions and you know dominated in pretty much every organization they went to, but because they were trendsetters. You know, they really were. They were trendsetters. You know, because most tag teams that you would have back in the 80s, the late 80s going into the early 90s, you know, they would mostly be like smaller, quicker tag teams. Like you didn't really have too many muscular, powerful, dominant tag teams back then. You know, so the Road Warriors, you know, really paved the way, you know, for tag team wrestling in that aspect. So I believe they're all deserving, more than deserving, matter of fact, of being in the Hall of Fame. Now, of course, you know, Road Warrior Hawk recently died a couple of years ago of a heart problem. So, you know, he probably won't. Well, you know, I know it's going to be an emotional night for Animal and Paul Ellering. That they're not going to be able to have Hawk there with them to celebrate and bask in the ambience of you know this moment. But you know, Hawk, you know I'm sure he was an awesome guy. You know, outside of wrestling, you know, from what I've seen, he seemed to be a really nice guy. You know, he you know he did battle some personal issues towards the latter part of his career. You know, he was dealing with drugs and alcohol and stuff. But you know, towards the end of his days here on Earth, he did get himself spiritually cleansed. You know, he gave his life over to Christ and he got saved. Matter of fact, both Road Warriors got saved. Matter of fact, and gave their life to Christ. So, you know, that's one good thing you can say that you know Hawk did. You know, before he left here, is he got himself right with the Lord, and I can respect that. You know, and I honor that, and I admire him for that. Matter of fact, I admire both of them for that. You know, me being a spiritual, God-fearing man myself, you know, I admire them for that. You know, and that made me like them even more than I already did as wrestlers. You know, that made me like them more as people. You know, for them to make a decision like that in their life. You know, with all the experiences that they went through on the road, you know, for them to go and get their soul saved, you know, that's a big thumbs up in my book. So, yeah, the Road Warriors, excellent job, excellent job. You definitely deserve to be here, no doubt about it. And One last person I want to get to. Um, of course, he's no stranger. He probably doesn't even need an introduction from me, so I'm not going to even introduce him. I'm just going to say, you know, this guy here that I'm about to talk about now, he pretty much set the wrestling business on fire. Uh, Even from his days with the Rockers, he was still a very exciting competitor to watch. And when he went into singles competition, he was just basically taking off then. You know, when Shawn Michaels, when he was on the tag team scene with the Rockers for a while, that was just kind of like the launching pad. And then when he finally transitioned into his Heartbreak Kid image, he was just taking off, man. He just skyrocketed pretty much, you know. But I mean, what can you say about Shawn Michaels, man? Probably one of the best wrestlers of all time, period. Um, could you put him up there in a class with Ric Flair and Harley Race and all those other guys? Maybe, but the style that Shawn Michaels brought to the industry, that guy's in a class of his own. I mean, this guy has pretty much done everything that you could possibly want to do as a wrestler. I mean, what was it? Two-time Intercontinental Champion. Uh, Two-time WWE Champion. Former World Heavyweight Champion. Multi-time Tag Team Champion. European Champion. Royal Rumble winner, 1995 and 96. What else? Slammy Award winner. The first Grand Slam champion. He innovated the ladder match. I mean, headlined almost or just about every WrestleMania there has been in the 90s, and beyond. It was probably maybe a couple of WrestleManias he didn't headline. Maybe because of the injury or whatever. I don't recall. I can't remember what WrestleMania he didn't headline, but it's been more. I'll say it's more than less that he has the headline. But yeah, Shawn Michaels, man, back in his era before he got down to the last days of his career, Shawn Michaels was the man. I mean, just an excellent blend of flamboyance and athleticism and guts and determination, and the guy could talk. Shawn Michaels could talk so well. I mean, he may have put this image as being like this pretty boy, sex symbol or whatever you want to call it, but man, when that guy did a promo, whether it was serious or whether it was, for fun, I mean, you could really feel everything he was saying. That's some powerful stuff, man. But, and his matches, man, let's not even go into that. We could talk all day about his matches, The Iron Man match with Bret Hart, what's another one? The matchups with Psycho Sid and Big Daddy Cool Diesel and, even the ladder match, the historic ladder match at WrestleMania 10 with Razor Ramon, the Owen Hart rivalry, oh man, it was so many matches I could run down about Shawn Michaels, but I probably won't even have enough time in this video to get to it. But yeah, Shawn Michaels, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. If Shawn Michaels didn't get inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, I was going to call WWE and I was going to protest like mad, because that guy has definitely earned a spot into the Hall of Fame, because it's a countless list of what that guy has done. So